Every photo is edited. We start with an edit. Absolutely, every photo is edited. And to demonstrate this, we drove to the Peak District. And I do need to point out that this is not sponsored by McDonald's or Radio 2. The idea for this video really come from a discussion I had with a friend on Facebook the other day about these two photos. The general question was, well, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the colour one or the edited mono? And he came back and he said, I've got a thing about edited photos, and went into a bit of a discussion about this. I said, well, every photo is edited in some way. I mean, even the colour one was edited. It just wasn't obviously edited because it was still colour and the other one was a heavily processed black and white. But I made the point that the black and white could be created in camera without the editing process before. And the point being also that you could have done this in camera and in a dark room using film. You don't have to have a computer to make edits in the kind that I've done with this image. And we kind of got into a discussion and he was kind of stuck with the mindset that photography should in some way portray reality, and it led to me talking about photography being an art form. And well, the question is it or isn't it? Well, in my mind, yeah, of course it's an art form. We're capturing what we see, but we're capturing it in a way that we want it to be depicted, and then we're editing it in a way that we want to show it and display it. In most cases, that will still reflect the original scene that we saw with our eyes, but it doesn't have to. Such as with ICM, we never see the streaks in our eyes that ICM creates. But it's still photography because we're capturing it with a light-sensitive system, therefore photography, literally by definition. And it's very much art because it could be so abstract that it's just a bundle of colours and such. But when you turn around and say, well, this image is a bunch of silver birches that I shot in the woodland close to kind of blue hour sunset, or sunset blue hour in winter. And you think, oh yeah, so it is. Doesn't it look good? But there's so much more to the photographic process than just a bit of post-processing. And that's what I really want to explore here. So I've put my wide-angle lens on, and I want to just talk about this scene that I've got running up here. I can assure you, here and now, it's not the greatest scene. I've kind of just plonked the camera down and found I'll be honest, I was tempted by the heather, the purple heather that's beginning to come into bloom here, and I could see it from a way off because it's against this wonderfully bright green kind of privet type plant as well. So it's such a wonderful colour to be drawn to. And I come up here and I needed to kind of find a line to lead through. It's not going to be the greatest photograph, but it emphasises my point and illustrates my point about art in photography. Because whereas somewhere, let's twist around, somewhere up there on the path I saw this bunch of heather here, I decided back up the path that the heather obviously had to be my foreground, and then I had to look for a background and a leading line to take us through it. And I haven't really got a great background, but I've got something. Let's just talk you very briefly through the composition. The angle of the camera, as you can see, is looking down through this heather, through the stones up there, two of them at different angles to one another, which creates a kind of V shape, and then there's a kind of walk through looking up, a dip in the heather and the foliage, if you like, up to a stone up on the other side of the road in the hills over there. Now obviously the stone is quite subtle, quite small in the shot, but my point is that I've chosen this position as we all do in composition. Composition is about finding the right things to include in your frame and to exclude the things that you don't want in your frame, and to create leading lines, whether they're physical lines or whether they're lines of colour, whether they're lines of shadow, light and shade, that kind of thing. Getting your camera in that position and taking the shot, that is an edit. Let's not beat about the bush. That's an edit. So the photograph has started off without ever existing, but it started off with an edit. Fix that in your minds, because as soon as you start understanding this, whether you're a photographer or not, in actual fact, but I'd argue if you're not a photographer and you've got it in your head that you shouldn't edit photos, every photo is edited. We start with an edit. Even if it's a snapshot, it's an edit, because you decide perhaps where to put your family member, make sure there isn't a tree sticking out their head or a bush growing out of their ear. Yeah, make sure that they're not squinting into the light. All of these things are edits. That's how they start. So bear that in mind before you start saying, well, photographs shouldn't be edited. If you're a photojournalist, I agree. They shouldn't be edited. And often they're taken in the moment. But this is a landscape photo. It's edited from its very conception. Anyway, it's not going to set the world alight, but it's probably a nice little shot, so I hope you like it. Having picked our way through quite a lot of heather, and we gave up on one path because there was someone that was walked through and disturbed, well, partially destroyed a wasp nest, and they weren't happy about it, so we weren't going to walk past that, so we had to pick our way through another part of it. And we found this chasm. It's rather nice. Down the bottom, 3 or 4 discarded millstones, and the leading line through it is really nice, so that's what we're going to shoot. A lot of it's looking down. What's not to like? We've got quite a nice line through. It's a curve, so we run down the edge here between a couple of rocks, around and down to the millstones down below. I'm going to shoot it in 3 sections, so we'll start by starting the section with my hand in the way so I can detect where things are in Lightroom as a sequence start. I'm going to start by focusing on this rock here. I'm going to go to the silver birch, which is the midpoint. I'm going to then find the deepest point further through. There's a bit of breeze here, and I might have not done that a good service, so I'm going to start this again. Now, when I say there's a bit of breeze, I might not have done it a good service. I'm only running at 1/8 of a second, and obviously therefore when I start merging things and whatever, we're going to have leaves and everything in different places. Which obviously we may have anyway because there's a difference in the shots, but I'm taking it down to f9, or actually f8 in fact, and I'm going to push the ISO up to 800, and that gives me an 80th of a second, which is 10 times faster than what it was a minute ago. So let's start this again. Starting the distance point now for a shot, come back to the midpoint, and then come back to the local rocks. somewhere in there, there's going to be a shot. Another way that we edit our photos before we've taken them is by choosing the aperture, the shutter speed, the ISO, everything that forms part of the exposure triangle. It's something we choose, or if we don't choose it, then the camera chooses it. A choice is made, therefore it's another edit in the process of taking the photograph. And another thing is, are we going to use filters or not? In this shot I'm lining up here, I don't have a great deal of choice but use a filter, because without it the shot isn't worth having. So the polarizer filter on this grey day you would think probably isn't doing a great deal, but I'm looking over the top of a whole load of bracken which is incredibly green, and it's picking up an awful lot of light, and by putting the polarizer on I can cut through and darken down some of that light, or some of that green, the highlights that are coming off it. So light, darker. It's quite subtle, but it does make quite a difference to the image. It makes the difference between, is the image worth taking or not? Now, I probably could darken some of that down in Lightroom in post, and I probably will even darken it further now. But now it's definitely got some definition to it rather than just being a very unpleasant highlight. And we can take those highlights right the way down as much as possible so the eye doesn't basically lead to them. And again, it's a choice, it's an edit. These edits happen before we get the SD card out of the camera. If you ever turn around and someone say, or have someone say to you that they don't like edited photos, remind them that every single photo they have ever seen in their life is edited. Whether somebody fully appreciates that at the time or not, it has been edited. Anyway, I'm going to concentrate on the shot, and I hope you like it. Let me know in the comments, and don't forget, give the video a thumbs up. So a bit more editing going on here before I take the shot. I've put on my variable ND filter, which goes to I think 3 stops. It's also a polarizer, and as you can hear, if you can't see, I'm by moving water. And the whole idea here is to slow the action of the water down so that I can create some dynamic movement in the shot without there really being any movement. It's another form of editing. So the variable ND allows me to slow the shutter down, that is to say keep it open for longer so that any movement is captured by the sensor, and the polarizer allows me to take the glare off the water as well so that any unwanted highlights can be kept to a minimum. It's all editing. It's pre-processing, if you like. By changing my ND on the variable part of the filter, I'm able to get my shutter speed from around 3.2 seconds through to 40 seconds. Which of course is going to have a big difference on the way that the water looks. I don't want it anything like that fast. I'm stopped down to F9. I'm focused pretty much right in the centre of frame. And I'm at, what are we at? We are at 30 mil. All choices I make to get the photo. This is pre-processing, if you like. And let's just call it editing. Mad, isn't it? If I just zoom out a little. Look, I've just edited the shot again. Absolutely bonkers. Anyway, I hope you like the shots. It's just a small study of a couple of small cascades on this brook. Relatively intimate little shots. Quite nice. Hope you like them. An invaluable tip for anybody that's ever put in their camera in a water like this where it's perhaps a little vulnerable or the edge of a precipice or anything like that. Get your strap. I know not everybody uses straps. You should. It's up to you, of course. Get your strap, wrap it around your wrist, keep it quite long. If that's to tumble in any way, you're going to stop it. It makes a big difference to how you feel about the security of the shot, because heck, I can't afford my gear to fall into that river and become completely useless. I nearly came a cropper taking a shot when I was in this similar location. Can't think when it was, a couple of weeks ago now. Came down here, I got the camera on the edge of quite a big drop, and I knocked it with my foot, and there was only one way for it to go. That stopped it. So a little bit more editing has gone on this shot as well. I've come a little bit further down the brook, found another little pretty cascade. I mean, it's littered with them. I mean, when I say found, it's here. Set my tripod up on this rock. I'm focusing down on this lovely bit of, I'm not sure, is it clover? Something like that. And then looking up into the cascade. It's a nice shot. Same kind of editing as before. Put a polarizer on it, put an ND on it. But also here a couple of other things. So down here were a couple of rocks that were really grabbing the eye. They were just too bright, so I've moved those. I'm going to say rocks. Yeah, nothing much. And we've got this little bit of grass. So in order to edit, because it's in the shot, I've just pulled it back round behind my tripod leg to take the shot. As often happens in these situations, to be absolutely safe and keep everything as sharp as possible, I've done two shots. I've focused on the clover and then I focused on the cascade, and I will merge those later on. So loads of ideas up here before the shot is taken as to how I want it to look, how I'm composing it, how I'm going to edit it, not only now but when I get back to the computer. Anyway, if it's all worked out nicely, here's the shot.